To the August 26, 2013 Troy City Council meeting. We are pleased this evening to have Pastor Robert Chalette from the Troy Assembly of God with us to give the invocation. Please rise and remain standing for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance afterwards. Good evening, Pastor.
Good evening. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Lord, we thank you for your word that says that supplications and prayers and intercessions and giving of thanks should be made for all men, for kings and all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and reverence, for this is good and acceptable in the sight of God our Savior. Lord, we thank you that we can call upon you for all of our city officials and for all the business, the things that will be conducted here tonight. And we ask, Lord, for your blessing and for your help. We do acknowledge you, and we acknowledge our great need of your help tonight. Lord, you said in your word that without you, really, we can do nothing. Lord, I pray that you would help us today to trust in the Lord, according to your word, with all of our hearts and not lean to our own understanding, but in all of our ways to acknowledge you. And you said, Lord, that you would direct our paths, or you would make our paths straight. I ask you, Lord, that you would impart your wisdom to each one of the council members and to all of those that will engage in business tonight. I pray, Lord, that your righteousness would prevail in this city. Lord, that the things that are right according to your heart and your ways would be decided upon here tonight. I pray for unity among us. And Lord, I just ask you that you would let your presence be felt and experienced in each one of our hearts. Lord, we commit this night into your hands, and we thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. Troy City Council meeting is now called to order. The roll call, Ms. Bittner.
Mayor Slater?
Here.
Councilmember Campbell?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Here.
Councilmember Henderson?
Here.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Here.
Councilmember Pennington?
Here.
Councilmember Teets?
Here. All present. First order of business is certificates of recognition and special presentations. I would like to come down to the podium and present a certificate of recognition to Kathy and Carl Fucinari. If I could meet them at the podium, please. I'll read it first. Okay. This is a certificate of recognition to certify this award to Kathy and Carl Fucinari in recognition for your dedication to the City of Troy as a citizen code enforcement volunteer. In October 2011, you volunteered as part of an inaugural group to become the eyes and ears of our community. Your assignment was spending weekend hours touring the city and removing temporary signs placed in the city's right-of-way. Thanks to your hard work and dedication, you removed hundreds of illegal signs, which has helped to beautify Troy's landscape. The City of Troy extends sincere appreciation to Kathy and Carl Fucinari. You are an inspiration to the Troy community, embracing volunteerism, which contributes to making our community a wonderful place to live, work, learn, and play. You have truly made a difference and are a credit to yourself, your neighbors, and the City of Troy. Presented on this date, August 26, 2013, and it's signed by myself, and it's my pleasure to present this to you guys. Thanks so much for all you do.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Paul? I'm going to let Paul say a few words before
Sure.
we let you. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Slater. I'm Paul Evans. I supervise the program, the volunteer program, and when staff and I got together a couple years ago to put this program together, we decided, instead of reinventing the wheel, we'll look at other communities around the country and take the best from each community. Well, no other community does what we do, so staff and I had to put this program together from the ground up. And one thing we've learned is that the short and long-term success of any volunteer program depends substantially on the quality, dedication, and professionalism of the first group of volunteers that comes in. So I'll turn it over to you in just a second, but I want to say thanks from staff for all the work you've done. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I can attest that in my discussions with members of the public on a weekly basis that your work is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you. Yes. Well, I'd like to thank Paul and Mayor Slater for this award. It was a bit of a surprise that was even considered for us going out on Saturday mornings, and
It was our date day.
our date for the week, which Paul found really amusing when we first started this. While it's another excuse for a date each week. As many of you know, Carol and I have lived in Troy for 37 years. And one of the things that makes Troy an exceptional place to live is the level of volunteerism that permeates this community. Our exposure began with things like the Homeowners Association and continued for many years without many opportunities at school, at church, with the Scouts, TBB, my daughter's USS swim team, the Troy Gators. And when our youngest went off to school, we kind of looked at each other and said, what do we do now? Well, Troy, being the kind of community it is, stepped up and answered that question, starting with Citizens Academy, which I really feel if we have the opportunity to restore that program to its previous level with all the departments would be a real benefit to the community. It's been a pleasure to give back to the city that's our home. No matter what your interests and talents are, there are many opportunities to contribute your time and your creativity. From code enforcement to Troy People Concerned, Troy Youth Assistance, Troy Community Coalition, to the schools, to the library, to the Nature Center, the Historical Museum. The list goes on. And the opportunities for personal growth and friendships you develop more than compensate for your efforts. Thank you, City of Troy, for all you've been to us.
It's a great night. We have some other certificates of recognition. But next, the Troy Youth Assistance Annual Report will be introduced by Cindy Stewart from Community Affairs. And I think you're going to defer. Sure.
I'm on the board of TYA.
Okay.
It's my pleasure to introduce Robin Beltramini as the chair of TYA and Leonette Sipolowski as the outgoing chair.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Mayor Slater, City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you again today. Today, I come to you as the outgoing chair of Troy Community Coalition.
No, you're not. Troy Youth Assistance.
Troy Youth Assistance, I am. Troy Youth Assistance, that's me. Yeah. Outgoing, that's why. In the past, I've taken for granted that you're all familiar with what Troy Youth Assistance does in the Troy community. But today I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to give you a brief history of Troy Youth Assistance before we begin. We are not a fly-by-night organization. We celebrated last March our 55th anniversary. That's 55 years in partnership with the Oakland County Circuit Court Family Division, the Troy School District, and the City of Troy. In the mid-1950s, Judge Arthur Moore, an Oakland County Circuit Court judge, recognized from his bench that there were young people in the community who were making mistakes that brought them to his attention. And he believed that if they were given positive attention, they could be kept out of the justice system. He shared his vision of cooperation and partnership with among the Oakland County Court, the local school district, and the local municipalities with a group of influential local politicians, and at that time, Oakland County Youth Assistance was born. Today, there are 26 local youth assistance units. Each one is attached to the Circuit Court Family Division, to a local school district, and to the municipality. On Sunday, September 22nd, we will convene as a group to celebrate the 60th birthday of Oakland County Youth Assistance. The mission statement of our program, our programs, and our services, although they're tailored to meet the needs of the local communities, have not changed significantly in 60 years. We are committed to strengthening youth and families by preventing and reducing juvenile delinquency, child neglect, and child abuse through community involvement. As negative as juvenile delinquency, child neglect, and child abuse may sound, the TYA approach focuses on promoting positive behavior. The brochure which I shared with you last spring describes the programs and the services which are the cornerstones of our organization. Family-centered counseling with a professional counselor who is vetted, assigned, and financially supported by the Oakland County Circuit Court Family Division. She's sitting in our audience tonight. May I recognize her? Karen Wansovich. Thank you, Karen. We provide parenting programs, and quite honestly, Troy Youth Assistance is lauded among Oakland County for the best parenting programs consistently over, I can't tell you the last, I'd like to say 55 years. We provide skill-building scholarships to qualified youth who benefit from positive learning experiences. We create opportunities for youth to make positive contributions toward improving life for others in our community and in other communities. And we recognize Troy youth for their positive community contributions or significant turnarounds in their lives. Today, I'm here to present the TYA annual report of our activities. You have a copy of it. It's for the previous year. You will read examples of the programs and the services that I just described to you, and they are all supported by volunteers. I think you're going to be very impressed with all that we do with a very limited budget and with a band of devoted, hardworking volunteers. We don't do it by ourselves. We partner with local organizations like the Rotary Club of Troy, Troy Community Coalition, the Boys and Girls Club of Troy, the Troy Police Department, students in our high schools, the local churches, and a local Girl Scout troop. We do that to extend our reach in the community and to support their community activities, because we know that we can't do it alone, and that what they do is valuable, and teamwork is a necessity and a definite advantage in our community. Please take the time to peruse our annual report. We think it's a very attractive document and very informative. Please share it with people who you think might like to volunteer with us at Troy Youth Assistance. Please refer clients, share it with clients who you think you would like to refer to Troy Youth Assistance, to the office. I hope it gives you a clearer idea of who we are, what we do, and why we do it. Thank you for giving me this opportunity this last time to tell you the TYA story. Robin?
Thank you.
Thanks, Leonette. Mayor, members of council, that's the past. And my job as the current chair of TYA is to tell you about the future. And our activities this year started last week when we were the primary beneficiary of the Troy Police Charity Golf Outing. And first I want to thank Sergeant George Zielinski and TPD retiree Steve Brandamore for putting that all together. They did yeoman service, got us sponsors we never dreamed of, and encouraged people to golf and donate on our behalf. And Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman Henderson, Councilman Pennington, I'd like to thank you for golfing along with the city manager, Mr. Darling, the chief of police. There were lots of staff that supported us in this event, and we are truly, truly grateful. The sponsors obviously have a huge impact, and you can find all of them. If you want to support the people who support us, you can find all of them on our website, www.troyyouthassistance.org. But what do we do with money like that? How do we spend it? Leonette told you about our programs, and first and foremost, we add it to our youth involvement activities. We can expand and make better programs for those elementary school children who are mentored at those activities by high school kids. We can make better character building components of those events as well with that kind of money. Our youth recognition event, where we celebrate and reward those self-motivated, not in the very least, random act of kindness, where kids do the right thing or have the fortitude to overcome some major challenge in their own lives. Save the date, April 16th, 2014. Join us. We will celebrate those accomplishments once again. Skill building scholarships. The economy has not left Troy families behind. And we do have families who struggle in our community, trying to give their children those positive learning experiences that will help them build character and become balanced, contributing members of our community. We offer partial scholarships for those sorts of events. Our scheduled activities so far, and I will tell you, most of our, particularly the series activities, have an affordable fee. We can't do this for free anymore. Family education. Leonette said we're known for that, and absolutely we are. October 9th, our Active Parenting Now for the parents of 5 to 12-year-olds begins, 6-week class. Parenting with Boundaries begins January 15th, and that's for the parents of tweens and teens. Both of these series are led by a professional parenting counselor, and they focus on age-appropriate conversations, discipline techniques, how to teach your child choices, the teachable moments that we all have in the car or in a restaurant, or how do you make those work for your kids and your family, and building an honest and healthy relationship, parents and children. October 3rd, we will have the follow-up to our smartphone seminar that we offered in June. In March, teenage sex at what price? It's a huge choice that our children face, and this is a professionally led discussion. Following that month, we offered Trends, Friends, and Fatal Ends. Dr. Doug Carpenter from Perspectives here in Troy talks about risky behaviors and the consequences of those. We thank the City of Troy for donating the space at the Fire and Police Training Center for these one-shot seminars. That's huge for us that we don't have to pay somebody. Many of our professionals discount or donate their time and their expertise, and for that we are grateful. However, putting on programs that build a community and help children grow in positive ways is costly. So, you've all been exposed to our Dollars for Education raffle the last 3 springs, and we thank you for buying tickets. Most of you have. And that has netted us better than $25,000 over those 3 years. So it's been very nice to keep our programs going. This year we're adding the pancake breakfast that's part of Troy Family Days on September 15th. So we invite you all for coffee, juice, sausage, and all-you-can-eat pancakes for $6 a head. Most of all, we thank you for the opportunity to share our story, tell you what's coming up, and for your continued support for Troy Youth Assistance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Question?
I don't think there's any, just special thanks to everyone that worked so hard for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Robin, if you could just stay there for a second, I'm going to come down, talk to you for a second.
Okay.
I didn't know. It was a surprise. I did not know. I never got to an agenda. I probably shouldn't tell people that, but I never got to an agenda, so I did not know.
That's not
No. Particularly when I'm presenting.
Correct. But we're glad you're here. This is a great honor for me to present a service commendation to you for 10 years on City Council.
Thank you.
I don't know how it was 10 years. Is that because of the odd...
It was, because the terms changed. I had 2 3-year terms and a 4-year term.
Right. Makes sense now. I would like to read this, and I often tell people, I read a lot of these, and you can tell when somebody has done a lot, and you can tell when somebody's been around a while by the size of the font on the proclamation. And this is going to be a challenge for me tonight. Usually when you're over 60, it's a challenge to read small font, so please bear with me, but this is a great honor, Robin.
Thank you.
Whereas Robin Beltramini served on the Troy City Council for 10 years, from November 2001 to November of 2011. Prior to that, she was appointed to the Troy Planning Commission in 1996 and served as a member until 2001. Robin was the Planning Commission's vice chair from 1999 to 2000 and chair from 2000 to 2001. She began her service to the City of Troy in 1997 when she was appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals, serving as the chair from 1999 to 2000. And whereas Robin and her family moved from Arizona to the City of Troy in 1995, and I know you have some very important people here with you tonight, your husband and Mom is back there. It did not take her long to become involved in the Troy community, serving on the Hills of Charnwood Homeowners Association Board of Directors from 1995 to 1999, and as a board member, secretary, and president. And whereas Robin's volunteer efforts continued within the Troy School District as she became a member of the parent-teacher and the orchestra associations at Troy High School, while her daughters Elizabeth and Amanda were students. She was also a member of the Outcomes Endorsement, School Improvement, and Critical Thinking Target Area Committees, a volunteer at St. Elizabeth Ann Satan Church since 1995, and Troy Youth Assistance volunteer since 2005, serving now as the board chair. Congratulations on that. And whereas Robin has also served organizations beyond the City of Troy, including the Michigan Municipal League, Michigan State Boundary Commission, Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, the Community and Economic Development Advisory Council, National League of Cities, the Women Officials Network, and the Detroit Alumni Panhellenic Association, and the Alpha Omega Cron Phi Fraternity. And whereas in her spare time, Robin enjoys spending time with her husband, Dick, hi Dick, daughter Elizabeth, son-in-law Ryan Gutterman, and granddaughter Hazel, and daughter Amanda and son-in-law Steve Heelan. And whereas the quality of life that the city offers is a result of hard work, planning, sacrifice, and leadership. Thanks to Robin, one of Troy's dedicated volunteers, our quality city services will continue to thrive and are key to making Troy the greatest place to live in the state of Michigan. Now, therefore, be it known that the Troy City Council takes this opportunity to express its sincere appreciation and recognition to Robin Beltramini for her distinguished service and her many contributions to the betterment of the city through her hard work on City Council, Planning Commission, and Zoning Board of Appeals. And be it further known that by donating her time and talents, Robin has furthered the ideals that contribute to the enriching of our community. Troy is very fortunate to have citizens like Robin who give so much time and energy to make our community a great place to live, work, play, and raise a family. Presented this 26th day of August 2013, it's signed by myself and all members of City Council. It's a great honor, Robin, to present this service commendation to you. Congratulations.
I love surprises, but I don't always do well with them. So, this is nice. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Cindy. But it was my honor. It was my privilege to sit at that table. 4 years at the Planning Commission, 5 years on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and 10 years there. It was my privilege. Thank you.
Well, Kathy, that's hard to follow. I'm going to introduce Kathy Russ, the library director, who will present the Smart Investing at Your Library program, and September is Library Month, Card Month. Welcome, Kathy.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, and congratulations, Robin. You are a tough act to follow. I'm not going to try, but I brought an entourage, so. Pardon? I might cry because I'm so excited. So tonight we're here to give you an update on our progress on the Smart Investing at Your Library grant. If you remember, back in December, the library was awarded a grant from the American Library Association and the FINRA Foundation to put together a program on finances, and we chose as our topic a series of financial programs for teenagers and their parents to help teenagers build financial literacy skills that will last them a lifetime. We've called that program Financing Your Future, and you can see on the screen there's a story on the library's website about that. But what we're here to do tonight is to take you through the website, which is basically a one-stop shop for everything you need to know about this program, and to kind of unveil it to the community. We worked with Media Genesis, a Troy-based company, on putting together this website. The website was funded from the grant, but I want to make special mention that Media Genesis did donate 50 hours of time to this project, which equates to $5,000 as an in-kind donation, and we could not have done it without them. They were a wonderful partner, and we really appreciate their support. I want to, they couldn't be here tonight, but I want to especially thank John Backey and Rachel Rabideau because they kept us on task and on time, and they came up with this fabulous design. I also want to introduce to you my grant team. Their roles are also funded by the grant, except for Olivia here. But this is Lakia Washington. She is our program administrator. She's a student at Wayne State University. This is Ariana Clark. She's our marketing coordinator, also a student at Wayne State University. And you know Olivia Olson, who is the teen librarian. So
Welcome.
these fine people are going to help me out and present this website to you. So as you can see, we've got a link on the library's website to Financing Your Future in the story, but also on the gold bar, there's a link that gets you right into the website, and you can see it. We designed it to try to appeal to the teens, our target audience. So I'm going to turn it over to Lakia to take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. I would just like to thank the City Council for having us here this evening. Greatly appreciate that. I'm going to walk you through the homepage as well as the registration process for Financing Your Future, and also give you a little information regarding the YouTube channel. So, okay. The homepage is accessible through the main page of the Troy Public Library. As you can see on the homepage, we will have upcoming events under Where to Be. We also have the calendar, which will give you events that's going to take place through September to June, of 2014, and that's the duration of the program. Also, you'll see lots of resources which are supplemental to financial education. If you scroll to the top of the page, you'll and you click Register Now, that is going to bring you to our multiple session registration form, and at that point you can register for multiple sessions if you would like. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the, oh, excuse me, I forgot one point. I need to mention the news section of this page. That's very important. Our team is going to be communicating with the audience regarding highlights that's going to take place for the financial program via the news section. So again, we have Monopoly Mayhem, which is a fun event that's going to take place on Friday, September 6th. And as you see, we have information about Monopoly Mayhem. If you scroll down to the bottom of any of the pages, you'll see the YouTube link. We are going to upload the sessions that are going to take place through September, from September to June. So these sessions are going to be available to the whole community, which is a plus for us. I'm going to hand it over to Ariana. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ariana. Thank you for having us. Like Lakia said, we have YouTube where all our sessions will be uploaded. In addition to that, we also have a following on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Now I'll talk a little bit about the events. We will have multiple events throughout the program, ranging from laser tag to bowling to financial trivia. Our first event is September 6th on Friday at the Troy Public Library from 5 to 8 p.m. It'll be a life-size Monopoly game where students can learn about finances and also have some fun. They can earn Monopoly money, which is an ongoing incentive throughout the whole program, which they can redeem prizes at the very last event, which is called the Cash Carnival. It will be a great way for students to get involved and interact with their peers. Thank you. I'll pass it along to Olivia.
Hi, I'm Olivia. Thank you for having us. I'm going to turn your attention to the Get Resources tab on the webpage. As you can see, along the left, there is a list of links. There's a wealth of information here. And the nice thing about this is that any member of the community can access this. It's not just high schoolers or students. It's any member who wants to know more about finances can access this information. If you hit the session videos in the middle there, every educational session that we film will be uploaded here. We're going to film every single one, and they're going to be uploaded so that people can take the classes remotely if they'd like. We also have supplemental written information under session content, so that'll come soon. And then we also have a bunch of fun interactive things that are appealing to teens, like quizzes and games. So you can see it's colorful and fun. Okay, I'm going to turn it to Kathy. She's going to talk about scholarships. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I talk about scholarships, I do want to mention we appreciate the assistance of the Community Affairs Department. They and their staff are going to help us record all of the sessions, and as Lakia and Olivia pointed out, we are going to upload them onto the website. So if you have an interest in a particular topic, saving for retirement, investing, managing debt or credit, it will be accessible to everybody in the community. The program itself is aimed at teens, but we really felt strongly that we wanted to make the content available to anybody who has an interest in these topics. So you can enjoy it yourself. You could pass it on to maybe somebody that you think might benefit by it. It's just really for the whole community to enjoy. So now I will talk about the Scholarship Fund. As part of our program, to really make this a great incentive for teens to get involved with this program, and also as an incentive to continue participating, it is a 19-session program. We wanted to offer something that'll really make it worth their while. So what we're doing right now is we're working on raising $20,000 towards a scholarship fund. We'd like to offer 10 scholarships of $2,000 each, and students will have the opportunity to apply for a scholarship at the end of the program. We have some criteria. The student must attend at least 10 of the 19 sessions, whether in person or online, participate in at least 2 social events, and volunteer at least one of the social events. And there will also be a little essay component too. So I also, I need to make sure to point out the Friends of the Library are leading the way, as they so often do. They have already already pledged $2,000 towards one of the scholarships. So we've got one down, 9 to go. And the Community Affairs Department and Glenn Lappin in the Economic Development Department is helping us out with that. So if you know anybody who would like to get in on this, I would welcome your support. I think it's going to be a great incentive, and I think that we will definitely reach our goal and make this a really attractive program to the community. So I think that that covers everything. Unless you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Questions from council? Good job. It's a good job. I can tell you guys are smart. Thanks for all your hard work. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I have a wonderful team. They are terrific people to work with, so I'm very lucky.
Thank you very much.
But I get to stay. So all kinds of cool stuff going on at the library. So I won't take up too much more of your time, but I did want to tell you about a great opportunity that the whole community has. It's always a good time to have a library card, but there is no better time to have a library card than September, because September is Library Card Month, National Library Card Month. So what we did is we partnered with local business to do a Show Your Card and Save program, and you can see I gave all of you, I believe, a bookmark and a flyer. Plenty more where that came from, if you want to pass them out and paper your walls and give them to friends and family. 16 businesses signed up to participate in this. It was up to the business to decide what they wanted to offer. But as you can see, we have a great array of restaurants. We have some services. You can go skating at Skate World. Maybe your pet needs some veterinary care. You can go to Oakland Hills Veterinary Hospital. Whole Foods is doing Fabulous Fridays. So if you go to Whole Foods on a Friday and show your library card, they will give you something really cool in their Whole Foods kind of way. If you need auto parts or tires, you can go to Gary Nurick Goodyear. And then we've got a lot of restaurants. So please take advantage of this program. It's a great time to get your library card if you don't have one already. If you do have one, make sure you show it at these participating businesses and reap the benefits. We really, really, really appreciate the support of all the local businesses who are working with us on this. So thank you for the opportunity to let me talk them up and thank them for their participation.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, that concludes certificates of recognition and special presentations. It's a great night tonight. Congratulations to everyone. Our next order of business, there are no carryover items, no public hearings. Cindy, I don't see, is it correct that nobody has signed up to speak at public comment at all tonight? Pardon?
Mayor? Mayor?
I don't have any for public comment on the agenda or off the agenda.
Mayor? Mayor? There's one speaker signed up for items on the agenda. It's Jim Wojciechowski.
Okay. That didn't show up on my screen.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City staff.
Is this for items not on the agenda or on the agenda?
On the agenda.
Okay.
And city residents. I know later on you're going to have a study session, and the topic is prosecution service evaluation. I guess it's a study session to look at the possibility of taking the prosecution part of the attorneys, city attorneys, and outsourcing it. And I just wanted to tell you, I'm a big believer in outsourcing. I think it's wonderful that we have the building inspection outsourced. I think the golf courses, we should have outsourced those years ago instead of just in recent years. However, if there are three items in the city that I don't ever want to see outsourced any part of. That'd be the police, fire, and the city attorney's office. I think those things should be within the city where the people working there, we know exactly where their loyalties lie. So I would hope that you come to that same conclusion. As you know, we have probably the best city attorney in the state of Michigan, and she's competent in all sorts of areas, not just, in elder law or patent law or something. She knows all this stuff, including the prosecuting thing. She's been at it long enough that she's proficient at it, and I don't think it would make any sense to take it out of there. So please be knowing that at least one resident thinks you should keep things the way they are in that regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the list of people that have signed up to speak public comment for items on the agenda. Next order of business would be a response from City Council or City Administration. Okay, we'll move forward to postponed items. There are none. So our next order of business is regular business. I-1 is boards and committees. There are no mayoral appointments, and I will turn the microphone over to Mayor Pro Tem Fleming for other appointments.
Thank you, Mayor. We have one appointment tonight. Resolved that Troy City Council hereby appoints Gary Hoff to serve on the Parks and Recreation Board for the term expiring July 31st, 2014.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Fleming and supported by Councilwoman McGinnis that we appoint Gary Hoff for the term that expires 7/31/2014 to Parks and Recreation Board. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mayor, we have two other openings, one on the Liquor Advisory Committee and one on the Parks and Recreation Board, but not prepared to make a nomination tonight, hopefully by next meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Next order of business is a request for closed session. Councilwoman McGinnis?
Be it resolved that Troy City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by MCL 15.268A and MCL 15.243G.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman McGinnis and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Fleming that we will meet in closed session. The discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Motion passes. Next order of business is I-4, a request to accept an offer to purchase city-owned property at Long Lake in Somerton. And I see City Engineer Steve Van Dett at the podium. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's refreshing to be here on other business tonight.
I bet.
Before you this evening is a request to accept an offer to purchase city-owned property. It's 0.72 acres at the northeast corner of Long Lake in Somerton. It's approximately a half-mile west of Rochester Road. It was originally acquired in 1995 for widening Long Lake Road. At that time, it was acquired with federal funds, 80% federal, 20% city, and it was acquired for $130,000. This property was offered for bid in 2004, and the minimum bid required was $200,000. A $205,000 bid was received in 2004, but the sale did not go through, and we only had one bidder at that time. So the property sat for a while, and in 2011, we were approached by a buyer interested in the property, and we brought that to City Council, and City Council decided to decline that offer because at that time, in 2011, market conditions were considered low. So recently, we received a written offer for $210,000 from Sterling Construction Incorporated, and that happens to be the same entity that made the offer in 2011. The property currently is appraised at $145,000. It was appraised by Kim Harper, who is our deputy city assessor and a licensed state appraiser. The offer of $200,000 exceeds the current market value. The buyer, Sterling Construction, is the developer of the parcel to the east, building a single-family residence on that property, and recently selling that that property and the residents. Council approval is needed for the sale of this property, and Chapter 12 of the city charter does allow for the sale of city-owned property without a traditional bid procedure in the event that public interest will be best served without obtaining sealed bids. That concludes my presentation of the item. Here with me tonight is Larissa Fagel, and she is our senior right-of-way representative, and she can answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Councilman Pennington?
Steve, back in 2011, what was the offer then?
There was no monetary amount offered. They just requested that we if we would sell the property to them, we brought it before council to proceed with the process. They have this time submitted a written offer of $210,000.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Yes, so it's your opinion that if we went out for bid and asked for bids on this property, we would not get $210,000, we would lose the $210,000 offer we have on the table?
I can't say what someone will or will not bid, but it's a generous offer.
Mayor. Councilman Campbell?
That's all residential? Is that what
It
that
is
still is?
zoned, yes, R1.
Big residential, I saw the house.
Yes.
Councilman Henderson?
I did go online today to look at vacant land that's sold this year, as it's kind of a hobby of mine, and this is a pretty strong offer, so.
For a lot, that seems like a pretty good offer to me.
It is too big. It is.
I understand. But, Councilman Teets?
I must have misread the backup information. We received a phone call essentially offering this amount and have done the paperwork, but no other parties have been approached with this property. I mean, it was the same. Am I asking the question? Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
If I understand your question, the same entity that was interested in 2011 is now making the offer for purchase today.
But it isn't that we went out and
No.
sought offers or anything like that? Okay.
He did not.
You have a follow-up question? I can see you thinking.
Yeah, you can see me thinking. The question for the city manager is there any particular strategy with parcels that we are trying to sell or consider selling? Because it seems to me that for those people that would have information about what parcels the city does own, they might have a competitive advantage as far as bidding.
It's a really good question from a macro view in terms of, and I know Mike Culpepper, when he was the acting city manager, has been working with Larissa. And Larissa's done a lot of work of cataloging all the city parcels and what could be put out, what couldn't be put out, but that hasn't materialized as of yet. However, this is a classic case of it's got history and a bird in the hand's worth two in the bush, given the offer. That's why we brought this one to you under these conditions. So it's our recommendation that we take the bird in the hand.
Any other questions? Councilman Teets?
So will there be prepared a strategy for other parcels? I'm just asking it in general, outside of this.
There won't be there'll be a strategy at some point, there'll be a proposal, but at some point in the future, but it's not as easy of task as you might imagine in the city of Troy with all the, whether you want to call them remnant parcels, surplus parcels, but, you know, that is one of our strategies to put together that list and figure out what makes sense, what doesn't. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Somebody like to move the resolution? Councilman Campbell?
I'd like to move the resolution as printed for the acceptance of the offer.
Support. Moved by Councilman Campbell and supported by Councilman Pennington that we approve the resolution as printed. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Motion passes. I-5 is the city attorney's annual evaluation. Councilwoman McGinnis?
Resolved that the annual salary of City Attorney Lloyd Grigg Bloom be increased 1% effective July 6th, 2013.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman McGinnis and supported by Councilman Campbell that we approve the resolution as printed. Is there a discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Fleming.
Just a point, Mayor, I have no problem. I will support this resolution, but you and I have had discussions. I think more important than giving the 1% increase is the evaluation that we put in the file. I think this council has room for improvement, continuous improvement. On the 8 years I've been on the council, I don't think we've had a habit of really doing a formal evaluation. We give an increase, or we ask, in some cases, that you give salary back, which city attorney has done in the past. But what we've not done a good job of is evaluating and documenting an evaluation process, a continuous improvement, or recognizing a person for things that have gone really well. And I'm supporting this, but it's my understanding, we've had discussions, we're going to do a better job in the future, not only for the city attorney, but also for the city manager, in that not only just giving increases or evaluations, we're going to document and put something in the file, because faces change up here. City council members change, we all term limited, elections happen, mayors change, and if you don't put something in the file, it's not fair to the city manager or to the city attorney, nor is it fair to future city council members and mayors not having the benefit of looking back at a history. So I think that this 1% is fine, I'll support this, but more important is we need, as a council, to improve our process of evaluations and giving increases and documenting the same. So I'll be supporting this. Okay.
Thank you. Further discussion? Just a reinforcement that I support that. And the vote, Ms. Bittner?
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
No.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations, Lori.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is the consent agenda. Are there any items that any council member wishes to pull this evening? Somebody like to move the resolution? Councilwoman McGinnis.
Resolved that Troy City Council hereby approves all items on the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman McGinnis and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Fleming that we approve all items on the consent agenda this evening. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Motion passes. If you were here on a consent agenda item this evening, they all passed. Our next order of business is memorandums of future council agenda items. There are none. So our next order of business is public comment for items not on the agenda. Our first speaker is resident Marv Reinhardt. Ms. Bittner, the clock, is that working? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Slayer Mayor. One of my comments was first today is that I deal with people who buy land in the city of Troy all the time, all the surrounding areas. And the first comment, the guy sat down to me who says he goes around Troy with his checkbook buying stuff is, and I did ask him that I'm trying to buy land over by the Henry Ford area, and he says, good, that's swamp land and it stinks all the time. I ain't going to buy no land over there. But he also made a statement that said that there's no unofficial wetlands in the city of Troy. That's what he said. And today you just sold a lot unbid buildable land in Troy, which is fine, because I'll let my guy know, and he'll handle the problem of you guys just, because I told him that the city charter is only for their cronies, and they've got one, and I just talked to him today, okay? And he says that the food at the Lark isn't good enough to eat. So I don't know who he is, but if he complains about the Lark food, he's higher up the chain than I am. I'm just his do-boy, you know? Also, too, where's all the tree huggers? We cut down 50 acres of trees in this city. No complaint from all these people. I have no idea, because they said the only thing that's stopping some of these projects is the herring problem, but I'm sure you guys are going to figure that one out. Also, too, you see this paper here. This is an ad I ran for General Motors, and that's how I launched 14 lawsuits against General Motors in like 6 or 7 states. This is going out reverberate for the Troy, Michigan people, okay? It's already on the bond market in there, and I've already sent, like I told some of the people, I do converse with Iran and other people. I also converse with the Egyptians on the West Bank, you know, and the people don't want to know, but I tell you what, they don't like Obama any more than we do, and I send them articles all the time about how the people in Troy consider what Arabs are and how they treat Arabs, and the Iranian guy agrees. So the world sort of turns. But all I have to say is that I got a call from Woodside the other day to work a project with our organization, our 501(c)(3). And unlike Woodside, we're very careful how we spend our money. So my assignment is to check out Woodside, the people inside of it. And using my military background and my connections, which I do regularly, I have put them near the top of my list to find out whom these people are, because they came from Troy Baptist, a church that my dad helped found, and I do feel connected to Troy Baptist, and every time I hear Woodside doing something, it kind of grinds me. So don't worry about it. If you feel glitch on your computer or something goes crazy, it's just my market analysis and phone calls that's my guys trying to figure out what times you're there and what times you're not. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Nicholas Chiricero, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. 6 weeks ago, I came before you with this topic. I'll expand a little further tonight. On July 19th, the northeast section of the city of Troy was hit with a severe storm that felled a great many trees and did severe damage to that section of town. After cleaning up most of the damage, several residents called the city to ask for help in removing the debris. The following was taken from a letter to the editor in the Sunday, August 18th edition of the Oakland Press. Those calling were advised by someone working for the city, using a smart aleck tone of voice, who stated, because we had not passed the last millage, you're on your own. This was stated even though the city has a surplus of $23 million. And it's growing rapidly as I speak. This is absurd. Why is it the people of Troy do not know about this surplus? Why is the city council not advising the taxpayers about this surplus? What's the big secret? What's the surplus for? The operating part of the budget is about $52 million. Why do we have a reserve of 43%? This is uncalled for, especially when the council in 2009 increased the amount of the reserve from 10% to 15%, which based on that budget should be $7.5 million. What do we do with this surplus? There should be an immediate reduction in the millage rate of 1.5 mils. This will only keep the surplus from increasing to $30 million. A further reduction will be necessary in the future to reduce this surplus to where it should be. Mr. Fleming, I'm asking you personally to verify all of this information I have stated above. Also verify that Mayor Richard Doyle did institute a similar reduction during his administration. After verifying that I'm correct, please institute an initiative to reduce the current overtaxation. I believe that I'm also correct that the budget surplus in August of 2011 was about $12 million. In that case, the millage for the library was also unnecessary. The library millage should also be eliminated right now, and the library should be reopened 7 days and not closed on Friday. This accounts for about $10 million of the $23 million surplus. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the list of people that have signed up to speak, unless I'm missing something. Our next order of business is...
We're going to respond to that.
At this part of the agenda, we have to wait for council comments if we want to respond. There are no council referrals, so our next order of business will be council comments. Mayor Pro Tem Fleming.
Mayor, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Chericero for giving me a heads up 1 week ago that he was going to ask this question. I think it's a very fair question. I think you deserve an answer. I think all the citizens deserve an answer, and I think it needs to come from this council. But because you did give me a week's notice, and I really appreciate you being gentleman enough to do that, I did give that question to our city manager to verify what you were saying, and he has prepared a report that hopefully he can be willing to make some comments on. I didn't know if you were coming tonight, but I thought you might. So if Mayor, could I ask Mr. Kishnick to respond, not how we're going to deal with the money, but to verify a few things and make a comment? Could you do that?
I don't have any problem if there's a short response, but this probably isn't the section for a detailed report. I know there is a detailed report that was given to the council this evening. I have to assume that that's public and would be available to Mr. Chericero if you wanted to read it. But I'll defer to Mr. Kishnick first.
Well, no, you said it very, very clearly, but I just want you to know when Mr. Chericero came up, and I don't have the report in front of me, but I put it in the report because I believe, what was it June something, or it was some date, and right after that, the next morning, I went to the staff meeting. I thought, it's a pretty insightful comment, especially in light of the fact that I just gave a pretty significant presentation on fund balance to kick off the departmental operations report. And Mr. Chericero did come and say, sorry, he had not made it to those meetings. So with that, when he said that, I thought, this deserves a lot more attention, a lot more analysis and data gathering. So back at that time, assistant to the city manager, Saharish, and Nino LeCarry and Tom Darling and myself went to work on putting this together. And when Mayor Pro Tem Fleming said something to me this week, we put some of the final pieces together as we had it in to get it out to everyone. And I'm more than willing not just to share the document. I'm more than willing to sit down with anyone who wants to talk about the document, who wants to thoroughly investigate what the numbers actually mean if everybody is ready to be honest about the numbers. That's all that I would.
Okay.
So I'm more than willing to do that.
I appreciate that. Many of these numbers were discussed during the budget process. If you had listened to those study sessions, you would have got a good handle on the projections in the next 3 to 5 years. So I think the public welcomes your offer to sit down or discuss it with anyone. And there is a public document out there that I know you have been working on for some time that is available if somebody wants to see that also.
For sure.
Councilman Henderson.
Yeah, I remember the meeting that Mr. Chericero first addressed this, and almost immediately after, I happened to stop into Mr. Kishnick's office, and he kind of spitballed a couple of ideas that he had. So very proactive, and I think what you're experiencing with this document is the culture change that Brian has brought to the situation. So I just attaboy, that's all.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Teets.
Yeah, it's a 8-page outline of different scenarios and so forth, but could we have a study session or something along those lines to discuss this? Because I think we do have some policy decisions to make, and rather than wait till the next budget session when everything's kind of jammed in at one time, I think this fall or later this year, it would make sense to have a true discussion of, is 43% fund balance the right number? Is it, 17.5%? What's our game plan? And I think that would give good guidance to our city staff so they know how to proceed when they're putting together the budget. So I'd like to propose a study session to discuss, I guess, a little bit of vision and in policy regarding fund balance and what the right viewpoint is.
Well, I think my recollection is that we asked the city manager to put a study session together to look at things that we've done in the past and where we need to go in the future, and that can just be, I think, a part of that study session that we've already talked about, because we certainly don't want to give a perception to anyone that we're not being transparent. So let's just incorporate that into that study session that we talked about. We're going to revisit some of the things that we've done, look at what we're going to do in the future, and that can be part of the discussion. Mr. Kishnick, if I see you writing notes.
No, I would agree with you 100%. That certainly will fit in with the whole,
right.
Just to piggyback on that, last year we started the departmental review before the budget session, and that's what kicked off the general fund balance, to give us more time to just do budget and have a precursor, which was the operations review, right, which had financial data, but it was more than that. And so, we anticipate to do something similar this year as well. It takes a time commitment on everyone's part here, but, everyone's committed to a better Troy and more information so better decisions are made. So I think it'll work.
Correct. And I think it needs to be discussed. The 8-page document, I think, is right to the point, and if you read it and pay attention to the last paragraph, I think it makes a lot of sense to me. When we talked about that study session, can you refresh my memory? Was it October that we were looking at?
Well, it's a fall, winter thing, so it could be November.
Okay. Any other council comments?
Yeah, well, just one more comment. We do have the right-of-way mowing and sidewalk clearing, that's coming up, the Pure Michigan discussion, so.
Yeah. Infrastructure issues. Any other council comments? Any discussion on any of the reports that were published this evening? Do have a study item this evening, so we will be in recess to go to a study session and follow that with a closed session. So we are in recess, and we'll adjourn in the boardroom in 10 minutes. Okay, we're back in session with the study session. Before we start, and I turn it over to Mr. Kishnick, I'd like to ask City Attorney Bloom to introduce her staff that is here tonight that was so nice to show up this evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to highlight the members of the staff who are here tonight. We do have two who are not here because they were actually on vacation right now. But we do have Susan Lancaster, Assistant City Attorney, Julie Dufresne, Quinlan Dufresne, who grew up in Troy, also an Assistant City Attorney. We have Kathleen Bobick, who is our legal assistant, and Jackie Balt, who is a legal assistant too. So Jackie and Kathy, I thought it was really important that they're here tonight, especially because they do all prosecution work. And so they're here to answer any questions that you have. I'm here to answer questions, and again, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you. Yes. Two staff that are on vacation.
Additionally, we have Alan Motsney, Assistant City Attorney, and you've seen Alan before because he's been at some of the council meetings. And if you've called into our office, Sina Cox is the one who usually answers the phone or is the first person, and she is basically does overflow, office manager, all of that.
Okay. Good. Thanks for coming and putting up with us. We're here this evening because we asked City Manager Kishnick to put together a process for a review of the City Attorney's Office Prosecution Service evaluation, and we all were provided with a document before the meeting this evening, a 2-page memorandum, or no, I guess it's a 4-page. 4-page document that we certainly appreciate, and I believe you have a PowerPoint presentation that you're going to give this evening, and I'm going to turn this meeting over to City Manager Kishnick at this point.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I just want to thank the attorney staff for all the work that they have done. And as you know, this is a team effort that we always employ, whether it's in the budget or in operation evaluation. So we've been fortunate over the last couple of weeks to have a great group to put our heads together and think about what would this really look like. So I want to reiterate what you said, because there's been a few comments and questions of me that remind me why we're here, and I have to continually internally try to keep our heads around the fact that what we're doing is outlining what a study would look like, would entail, would encompass if this council asked us to go forward and evaluate the prosecution services component of the city attorney's office. So that's why when you don't see numbers, $1 million budget and 500,000 prosecution services, and I talk about buckets later, you don't see those numbers here. You don't see the analysis of all the different areas and what the volume is. That's because this is simply the thoughts of the outline of what the evaluation would look like if we went forward. And I've also included probably the largest customer of this service, the police department, as a user, as an interface with the city attorney's prosecution services, and included them not only in the representation of the study and the development of the outline, but also in the presentation tonight. So, and the other thing I've done is I've asked, Lori and anyone on her staff who's very, very good and great to work with, if I'm talking, you feel free to just interrupt and chime in if I'm missing something, because I certainly don't profess to know all this. So when you asked me to develop this on July 21, you asked me to look at the ICMA recommendation specifically dealing with the outsourcing. We went to the ICMA study that you already did because I didn't know what that said, and Saharish in our office does a great job of analyzing and summarizing the document and showing the support given for not outsourcing the legal department, the legal department as a whole, And so I wanted to remind everyone, that's the backdrop that we were you were up with in 2009? 11? 9 or 11? 11, sorry. And that the city attorney services costs generally lower than comparable costs for insurance defense, substantially lower than comparable costs for same thing, that efficiencies and advantages of in-house services outweigh the advantages of outsourcing. But they did say, apparently, look at prosecution function, eminent domain cases, and collection cases. I'm not going to talk about collection cases. Eminent domain cases, I think obviously there's some of that happening. And prosecutorial function, they said to evaluate should include whether to transfer this function to the county, which is quite an interesting dynamic. I've been in county government in multiple counties in Michigan and Florida. I've never been exposed to that. I'm sure it happens. I've just never been exposed to it. And given caseload and workload, I would find it difficult. Nonetheless, it did suggest that. So at a meeting, I asked a few people, I said, what do you think the largest use of prosecutory services is in the city attorney's office? And you get several different answers. And I thought traffic would be that one. Doesn't matter what the answer is. It's not what I thought it was by far. So I'm willing to stand in front of you and say I was wrong, and wrong by a lot. But my experience showed that. But what I thought, if you're going to study this, you should define what prosecution really is and identify the volumes of each types of case and procedures. Because if we don't even know what it is, if we just think it's traffic court or drunk driving or whatever, and we really haven't defined all the different areas, we're never going to get out of the box to do a true evaluation, whoever would be doing that evaluation. So under number 1, I talk about defining prosecution and then looking at the volumes. And so then under A, you start to understand there are cases, and then there are criminal procedures, and everything that's involved in both of those. So defining that. So before I go to number 2 through 7, I want to call on the police department to sort of give you a framework, the foundation for what those cases or procedures, what it actually is that they're doing, and how the police department utilizes the services so that we can even consider whether this should be evaluated.
This is a very lengthy list. It's not our intention to bore you by going through this list point by point. The list kind of speaks for itself, but a lot of this bears further explanation. In discussing how to best prepare for this, we felt that if we gave some anecdotal experiences that kind of overlap into these, that would best give you an idea on how the police department uses these services. So that's the direction we're going to go. I'll talk first, and then the captains will each give from their viewpoint at each of their divisions. When this idea first came up, I went to my command staff, which is 5 lieutenants, 2 captains, and myself. And we discussed the prosecution services that we get from the city attorney's office. In the course of doing that, the overriding theme that I got back from everybody is, why are we doing this? It's not broke, don't fix it. The police department enjoys the services we get along from prosecution and the other services we get from the city attorney's office. So from our viewpoint, things are humming along fine. That we consider the city attorney's office to be part of the law enforcement team here in the city of Troy. There's many other components that work with the city attorney's office, the police department, and all the other departments to make Troy one of the safest cities in America. It isn't just the police department. It's the city council support. It's the city management. It's the city of Troy School District. There's many, many people. Once we start tinkering with parts of this, we have a concern on how this is going to affect the whole. So this is one component that makes up all those parts. We pride ourselves in exceptional service to the citizens that we serve in the police department. The city attorney's office does the same thing. They provide exceptional services to the people. I regularly see the city attorney staff dealing with people here in the hallway and in the office there where they're talking to the citizens who are coming in that have issues and problems that they deal with. That's a very good resource for our citizens to take care of. A lot of other cities do not offer that. Some of the examples are when you think of domestic assaults.
Domestic assaults have changed over the years. We're very assertive and aggressive here in the city of Troy on domestic assault issues and make a lot of domestic assault arrests. If you assault somebody in a domestic situation, the odds are highly, highly likely you're going to get arrested. That's only part of the component. The prosecution then goes to the city attorney's office the vast majority of the time. They handle these cases. The state prosecutor, the county prosecutor, doesn't handle the vast majority of our cases, our city cases. You can't just look at the prosecution angle of it. There's those daily questions that the victim of an assault has for what do they do now. They're almost in a panic mode. They don't know where to go. The police department helps a bit, but the city attorney's office is a regular resource for them when they're coming in asking information on how to get a personal protection order, how to get the no contact orders. What do they do next? They guide them in how to proceed with that. If the city attorney's office didn't do that, we'd have to, I would imagine, we'd have to have somebody in a victim advocacy role in the police department, because the prosecutor's office for Oakland County does not have that resource anymore. City attorney's office helps us immensely with the policy and procedures that help us with how to prosecute cases, that help us to avoid civil suits and to make sure we're a professional police department. Virtually anytime we have a policy, if there's a policy shift, we get an opinion from the city attorney's office as to how to proceed with it, to make sure that it's good and we're going in the right direction. Some of the examples of that are our use of force policy, our pursuit policy, and our firearm issues. When we take firearms from somebody in an arrest situation, our city attorney's office is the one that works with the courts to decide if those firearms go back in a circumstance if it's safe to do so. You've got a pretty good track record because you haven't read about circumstances in Troy where somebody, the police took their gun and then gave it back to them and we had a problem. So we're doing pretty good with that. The final point I got before I turn it over to Captain Fry is I'm very involved with the CLEMIS system, which is the Court Law Enforcement Management Information System. There's the lien system and all the information that comes from CLEMIS. Several months ago, some attorneys who were not city employees came to the CLEMIS system and wanted access to the records to help in prosecuting cases. The chiefs on the Strategic Planning Committee voted overwhelmingly no, not to allow that. But at the same time, they gave access to the City of Troy City Attorney's Office because it's a city staff and the chiefs felt that they could be trusted and they gave access to our people. Now, we've had access for years. This just came up again and they continued to grant that access to the City of Troy. We're one of the few that are in that circumstance. And it's because they're viewed as city employees and they work closely with us and we can vouch for them based upon a history. We can't do that with someone that's outside and isn't within the building itself. So if that wasn't there, the police department for those prosecution services would have to pick up that load. We'd have to be doing all the records checks and providing all that data for an outside person. As it is now, we don't have to do that. So what I'd like to do now is turn it over to Captain Fry. Keith?
In being asked to provide a little bit of insight into some of the services that are provided by the City Attorney's Office, the challenge wasn't in finding things to bring up, it was actually eliminating the number of things that we could discuss. I know you guys have a list in front of you, and you've got some handouts that I've already provided to you, so I'm not going to go through all those individually. I do have 3 items, so I'm just going to limit 3 topics that probably would be of some interest to all of you. And I think you're going to find that some of the services that are provided by the City Attorney's Office aren't always tangible or easy to measure. The first example I'm going to bring up has to do with the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. It should bring a smile to everybody's face because it's been in the paper and covered since November of 2008 when the voters adopted it. Regardless of whatever your personal or individual opinion is towards medical marijuana, I think you'll find every individual that's been involved on either side of it will define it as probably one of the worst pieces of legislation that was ever written. It provided nightmares and challenges for law enforcement, ordinance enforcement, and zoning regulation. Much of the conflict associated with that law is still being interpreted and litigated. Here we are 4.5 years later, and much of it's still tied up in appeals. There's still some more questions than there are answers. I have to say that early on, it was a concern of everybody involved, and we spent countless hours working with the City Attorney's Office and trying to fashion an appropriate response or position to take with medical marijuana. We wanted to do what was in the best interest of the city. And for the most part, we've been successful in avoiding the trap, which was always a concern from the very onset, of becoming a test case and being drawn in costly litigation. And again, because of the appeals process, there are some municipalities that are caught up in that. The second example I'll bring to mind here, at least for you, and I think most of you, actually with the exception perhaps Councilman Pennington, were here for the massage parlors. In 2012, most of you should remember that we received a complaint of prostitution at one of the area massage facilities. We investigated the complaint and successfully prosecuted both the proprietor and 2 employees who worked there. In working closely with the city attorney's office and the building department in Safeville, we were also successful in preventing the establishment from reopening. And what perhaps some of you may not know is we were successful in preventing the proprietor from opening another massage parlor at a different location in the city. So I don't think it affects the city council. I can tell you that during the license appeal hearing before city council, if you guys will remember, the attorneys representing the owner indicated that they would be filing a civil rights lawsuit against the city. The city attorney's office was prepared and made it clear to the attorney that they would defend the enforcement actions of the police department and the licensing actions of city council. The lawsuit never materialized. These are quality of life issues for the community. The last item we will briefly discuss here has to do with interlocal agreements. As you're all aware, that the police department has been making efforts toward working closely with other law enforcement agencies and a lot of different cooperative initiatives. Some of those are, I've been told not to use acronyms, so I won't. The Major Case Assistance Team, that's MCAT. Special Investigations Unit, which is SIU. South Oakland County Crash Investigation Team, which is SOCIT. The Oakland County Tactical Training Consortium, which is OCTAC. And I have to tell you, for all of these initiatives, and these are only some of them now, the City Attorney's Office was instrumental and heavily involved in the burdensome and complicated task of drafting interlocal agreements in order to protect and limit the liability of participants of each of these initiatives. And just in bringing up the OCTAC one alone, I think Chief Mears will probably give me updates on it periodically. That involves all of Oakland County. I forgot how many different agencies are reflected there. But you can only imagine the nightmare if you're creating a document as an interlocal agreement and all the attorneys involved representing all these different, it relieved us a huge burden from us, and that all the questions went to the city attorney's office. And with that, I will Captain Richard.
You go over 60 seconds. Go fast. Okay, I have 3 other issues I'm going to speak about, similar to what Captain Fry did. The first one, and you all have heard all 3 of these multitude of times, I'm sure. The first one I'll speak about is actually we started in September 2011, kind of still ongoing today, is the traffic issue on Boyd Street. Sergeant Saminsky and several officers worked together with the city attorney's office, specifically with them, the engineering department, the Troy School District, and an International Academy to help resolve that issue. It took a multitude of hours of work with the whole entity within the city to help come to a resolution. Even though the problem hasn't quite gone away, we have done the best we can. Secondly, in April 2012, thanks to the state of Michigan, we had to have Sergeant Owens work directly with the city attorney's office in amending our city fireworks ordinance to become compliant with the state law, and also continue with the updates on that. He had to coordinate all this with the fire department, the building department, and the city attorney's office to get the ordinance to council to get passed in time to take care of the holidays. Lastly, the last year and a half, Sergeant Jones has also been working on the hookah lounge issues, ordinances that are applicable to it. Again, he worked with the city attorney's office and making sure we got all our bases covered, worked with the building department to help with whatever code violations that we've come across or have been reported to us. These are the types of issues that require numerous phone calls, emails, and meeting with people to help come to resolutions. We pride ourselves on being a community-based, problem-solving police department. The officers have the ability to reach out to all of the city departments for assistance in solving whatever problem they are working on for the citizens. The Troy Police Department has 99 sworn officers. In the Operations Division, I have 52 police officers, 9 sergeants, and 2 lieutenants. They cover the city 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. all of them can walk into or call the city attorney's office anytime they want. That would change. Here are some of the concerns I have as it pertains to privatizing any part of the city attorney's office. Would then all these officers need my permission prior to calling an attorney for advice? Who and how would we handle the billing for such a service? Would we have a quota system as to how many calls our officers could make while they're trying to solve a problem for the citizens? How would this affect my officers' ability to help the citizens with their problems, except in my opinion, to make the job more time-consuming and difficult for them? And most importantly to me, and I think everybody here should be, how does that make the police department's response to Detroit citizens any better? Thank you.
Okay, so I think we've given you kind of a flavor. I'll let Lori or anyone from her staff kind of go over the number one, in case we miss anything you want to highlight, but I think you can see how sometimes it's hard to separate the analysis from the structure, but this is an attempt to at least begin laying the groundwork for all the different services that we would have to take into consideration if we go forward with this. So I think that's really helpful to hear from the biggest users of the service. So Lori, were there any that you all wanted to cover and hit as a service?
Well, obviously, the drunk driving, that's one of the things that we feel really contributes to the safety of the city. We feel that that's a critical component. I don't know if you want me to go through all of those. We're happy to do that, but basically, the misdemeanor prosecution, we're in charge of it. So we've got 2 shopping malls in the city of Troy, so we've got a lot of retail theft with 2 shopping malls in the city. So we handle all of those. We handle the assaults that's already been brought up, but a lot of the domestic assaults, that's a lot of time. And it's statutorily mandated that we have somebody to talk to the victims, where the prosecuting official has to have somebody available. It's statutorily mandated. A lot of the other items on there, we have been able to, with the team approach, we've done things, the GEM, precious metals, and GEM ordinance revisions. That was done in response to the police department because it wasn't working the way that it was. And so because we're in-house, we were able to easily facilitate that. And that did involve a lot of meetings and things as well. So.
Yeah, sure.
Just to, I came in a good position to talk about privatization because I come from a firm that was outside counsel to a number of cities, 2 different firms, and so did Alan. And one of the things that I can tell you is that I've seen our staff on telephones with a domestic victim for hours at a time. When I was on private counsel, nobody ever found their way to our office, no citizens. We have citizens coming to the window all the time on different various issues. And our job is to make those citizens, we want to keep the city, as the chief said, we want to be there, we want to be there for them. We get great pleasure out of serving our citizens and trying to make them happy if we can. We can't make all of them happy. But when you get a situation like that, and you have a staff that's willing to put in all those extra hours and all that time with your citizens, it reflects, I think, on the fact that it makes this community better. It makes this council better. It makes the appearance of really caring for what citizens think. I do not remember in all the years that I was private counsel, if we had 1 or 2 people find their way to our building, our private building, and spend some time with us. That was a long time. So I think that one of the things you can't pick up in a private firm is that we've got a really dedicated staff here, and they really want to do what's right for the city.
Okay, so that's the definition of types of cases, procedures. That gives you a little bit of a foundation. And so that if we were to move forward, and once we do that, look at the volumes in each area, do the literature review, which is just reviewing the study again, and I would recommend we talk to the authors and see what is it that they were really getting at and discuss that. We should have a discussion on the prosecution reputation, the service of the city attorney. I don't know why that color changed, but can you hit that, Chief?
I kind of like that new color.
He's on the eyes. Could be. Just seems like it's not right.
Hey, Chief, don't touch that again.
I love the comeback. Is there anything else you can help with?
Anyway, so again, getting back to number 3 of this, I think it's pretty important, is to look internally, talk to the police department as we've tried to do and more of the putting the study together, the fire department and public works, all the users internally of the services and the interface, as well as externally, talk to district court judges, the magistrates, court administrator and staff, and probation officers, and just get a lay of the land, get a feel for the City of Troy Prosecution Services in the city attorney's office. Now, here's something that I think some of you may have thought I was going to do for tonight, and that is to roll out the buckets of all the different areas and what it cost for each service in the 5 areas of the city attorney's department, let's just say. And that's not what I'm doing for tonight. I'm only saying we should do that so we have an idea of what the costs we're dealing with and what the hours are, so that you can make an apples-to-apples comparison in the future. Evaluate in-house versus out-house or contracted out, and look at that in terms of cost, logistics, access, service to city departments, and impact on other departments, all the intangibles, some of the things they talked about. But evaluate those in those areas particularly. And then look at other municipalities, comparable communities, and evaluates the similarities and differences and costs in different areas.
Just on the cost element, that is something that you truly need to consider, because right now, our office runs all of the police reports. We run the liens, we do the pictures, we do the discovery, we do all of that. And somebody has to do it in order to have prosecution services. So that is a very real cost that should be considered. And that's really just one example. There are numerous other examples as well.
And just to talk about this, and I'll go back to the slide before if someone want to have a lot more discussion about that. But if you do direct us to facilitate the further study and analysis, we recommend an objective outside consultant be selected, not somebody internally. I just don't think that that's something that staff internally should be engaged in, given all the different variables and pressures of the subject matter. And I'd also ask if you would forward to consider a peer review group that may be that'd be utilized in addition to the legal consultant to add the layer of analysis, review, and objectivity. I think too many times what happens is we hire a consultant and they start giving us their recommendations, and if you're, you feel like you're on that slippery slope and you have to go with it. And there's really no objective peer review to say, well, wait a second, what about this, other than staff. And so I think it would be something worth considering. But again, it's time and it's money to do that. So I hope that satisfies the city council's request of us to put together an outline. If you want to continue to move forward and discuss the evaluation, or if there's something I missed.
Thank you. Before I assume there are some questions this evening, but I guess, why are we here? Question. I certainly don't want the city attorney's office to think that the entire council wants to outsource this. This was basically, I think, from a city council standpoint, we have an obligation to the process, to take a look at every part of the city, review it, and see if we are spending the taxpayers' money the best way that it should be spent. And a couple of council members thought that it would be best to have a study session, or maybe even go out for RFP. And the majority of consensus in the council was we should talk about that before that ever gets to that point, because I don't know where this is going to go tonight, but I am certainly never going to be in favor of outsourcing the city attorney's office, even though I agreed to sit and listen to a process. And we will hear from each council member tonight to see what they want to do too. So I want you to understand that this wasn't so much we're looking to do something, we're reviewing a study that was given to us by the ICMA that said, take a look at maybe the prosecution end of this, and that's where we are today. And hopefully when we leave here this evening, there will be a decision whether we even want to move forward or not. We've heard, in my opinion, from the most important part of the process, and that's the police department, the relationship that they have with the city attorney's office. And I thank the police department for doing that. I have some personal opinions that just mirror everything that I heard tonight from the police department. So having said that, I just want everybody to understand why we are here. It's not that we're going to do that, but we're here to discuss that. And I will open questions up to any council member that wishes to ask any questions or give a viewpoint, or I hope at the end of this meeting that there's a consensus whether we are happy with the teamwork and the relationship that the city attorney's office has with the city, or do we want to look at proceeding further, which will cost us money at some point probably. So, Councilman Bennington, I saw your pen go up first.
Yes, just a reflex there. No, well, not being here 2 years ago, this ICMA study was not, obviously not just city attorney's office, it was a broad study, but if we were to bring a study in like that, what kind of cost was this ICMA study 2 years ago? I mean, that had to be a big...
It cost $14,000 within that study. So I would assume, because it was part of a great big study, it wasn't as expensive as it would be if you probably outsourced that at this point. Just common sense wise, I would think it would be more expensive.
And to piggyback on Brian's point, it wouldn't be fair to have someone do it in the city. You would have to be someone from out of the city to have the study.
I agree
Otherwise,
with
it's
that.
not, it's, why have it? It wouldn't make any sense to do it. So you bring in that additional cost, or you get to the point that the police are saying is, if it's not broke, why are you trying to fix something that's not broke? That's which kind of like, where I'm looking at.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Councilman Campbell.
Panel,
Yes.
I agree. Yeah, number one, I don't think you're ever going to be able to get an apples-to-apples quote from any attorneys for what they actually do on here. There's no way. There's so many hidden items that you do that are not on the agenda of an outside source. I agree the police need them. They work well together. We don't need to, I don't think we need to spend more money to do a study. The IMCA before said that the cost effectiveness was here. And the last time, almost half as much as what is going outside. And I agree with you, Dana. I'm not, will certainly not support putting that outside. And I don't really support carrying this on any further than tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming.
I think as difficult as it is, we have a responsibility as a council to do our due diligence, to look at every department, I'm saying this with all these people behind me can hit me in the back of the head. I wouldn't blame you if you did, but I respect all of you. But we have a responsibility as a council to make sure that the taxpayers' money, and you said it up front, Mayor, is being spent wisely. I appreciate the police position, I understand that completely. I don't know, looking at this report, what the cost breakdown is, the bucket cost of prosecution. We're talking about prosecution, we'd be talking about any part of the legal services that the city attorney's office is providing. But is it $500,000? Is it $750,000? Is it $250,000? In order to make a decision that even
formulate in my mind what we should do from tonight forward, I need to understand and would like to understand a breakdown of the cost here. Because if we don't understand that, you can say there's a lot of intangibles, and I agree with that, but still, you have to put a pencil to it to see, is there an opportunity for savings? If we can save $200,000 or $300,000, I'm just throwing a number out, how many policemen is that, you know? We put the money somewhere else, you know? I don't know what the number is. I don't know what we could save. Certainly, a lot of cities do have outsourced their prosecution, outsourced other things as well in the legal department. I think they're doing a good job, but it's a matter of cost. There are people that are expert in certain areas of municipal law. And if you're an expert in that area, you might spend 5 hours doing something that would require an internal person who's more broad-based and not expert to spend 100 hours on. You know, so we start talking about hours and man hours and overtime and so forth. You have to take that into consideration. I really don't know without understanding what the costs are, what my recommendation would be tonight. But I think we have a responsibility as a council to do our due diligence and make sure that we are getting value for the money, and certainly take into consideration the intangible. There's no council person at this table that wants us to lose the distinction as one of the safest cities in the state, the country. But I think we have an obligation as a council to make sure that we're spending the money wisely. We couldn't do the same thing a different way. We have to look at it. If we'd had this conversation about the building department, you know, we could have probably had people line up and say how valuable it was to keep the building department internally and get people and get line up. Nobody probably on the city staff wanted to get rid of the building department either, but that was something that was driven by the city manager at the time. But in hindsight, we think that was a good decision. I don't know if it's a good decision here. We don't have the numbers to even start the discussion at this point, other than we're talking a lot of intangibles here, which there's a value to that. So I can't say.
I think one of the most telling things in this report is the next steps. And, you know, I'm going to, again, give Brian a pat on the back. Because the very last sentence, a peer review group may be utilized in addition to a municipal legal consultant to add a layer of analysis. And when the ICMA report came out, I was on the outside looking in, and there were a lot of raised eyebrows about, you know, why do we use them? Who really checked them? Was there value in that? Was the information accurate? There's just a lot of skepticism in the public.
The ICMA?
The ICMA report, right. So, again, to Brian's point, adding that extra layer of objectivity that's culture change, and Brian brings that to the table, and I can't stress enough how valuable I think that is currently and how it's going to be affecting the city of Troy in the future. That said, the report that we got earlier today, ICMA lists outsourcing the legal services department not as a recommended practice. It was stated that based on the size of the city and its various operations, the city operates the attorney office at a barely sustainable level. Well, if that's the case, it would seem to me that outsourcing part of it might ease some of that strain and make it more sustainable. So, you know, on one hand, you know, as with any report, you know, they tell you kind of what you want to hear, and whatever spin you tell them to put on it, that's what they're going to put on it. So, again, I like having a little checks and balances there. I don't see any reason that every department shouldn't undergo this. I mean, we've looked at it for assessing the golf courses, which we know we've outsourced, in the building department. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't go the extra mile to at least look at it. At the end of the day, it might not work, and we may have the most efficient, best service available, and, you know, I'm happy with that. But
So you're willing to spend $25,000 to do that?
We don't know.
I don't know. Is that the number?
Is that the number?
Well, let's say it's $14,000. Are you willing to spend $14,000 again?
Yeah.
It's something that's, no one has come to us and said.
Nobody's come to us and said that you have a problem with it?
If I may, if we knew that, you know, to Wade's point, is that a $250,000 process that we're looking at a year, or is it a $2.5 million process that we're looking to outsource a year? If it's $2.5 million, you know,
yeah, absolutely, we should look at it. If it's, you know, $50,000, yeah, probably, you know, that's insignificant, and maybe the value added that we get without making any changes is not worth the investment that it would take. But I don't see that number there.
I think the hard thing is, what do you piecemeal out? What do you outsource? What do you, I'd like to hear a different attorney's point of view.
I mean, I don't want to be looked at as any sort of expert, but I did want to make a comment anyway, just as a council person. You know, I think we do have a responsibility to overturn all the stones and make sure that we've looked at every department, and it's a process of continuous improvement. But at this point, I think that it would be absolutely impossible for us right now to go out and get an apples-to-apples comparison. So the idea that we would just say, hey, we should probably take a look at this and get bids is ludicrous to me, because I think at this point, we're just looking at this list up here, and what we determine to be as part of the prosecutorial package may not at all line up with what someone else is going to come out to bid. So, I mean, first and foremost, if that's the position that we're going to take, it's going to be a much more involved process than just going out for bid and getting some numbers and trying to compare. We would have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what this includes, trying to put some value on the intangibles. I think we'd have to have a neutral person not task the city manager, not task the city attorney's office to do this. So there's going to be some cost involved. And that's when I get to the point where I just take a step back from just going out and turning over every stone. When there's going to be cost involved to do something like this, so we can really get some numbers, I have an issue with that, because we're dealing with a department that, by and large, we haven't had any issues with. And aside from any issues, we've had many people in the community and from other departments tell us that the services that they provide are invaluable. So I guess that's where I have an issue. I don't feel like we're in a position where we can just go out and get bids, because any number that comes back to us is virtually impossible to compare with what we're dealing with now. So we would have to spend some serious time and some serious money prepping to be able to go out for a bid, and I have a problem, potentially making that time, resource, and money investment when there's no allegation that the services that we're being provided are, outrageously expensive or not extremely valuable to the way our city operates. So that's, I guess, where I reach a stumbling block on this, really, about putting in the time, effort, the resources. I mean, we already know that our city attorney's office is shorter staffed than it used to be, and even though we're going to bring in it's just like when we went through ICMA. We're bringing in an outside source because we needed to have a neutral position, but that didn't mean that our staff members in every single department were extremely taxed to provide whatever information needed to be provided. So, I mean, that's going to be taking away time and energy that they can be doing on things that we need in the city, and I just don't know if I've been given enough information to prove that that's something that we need to take on at this point. So if we were dealing with some issue or a big complaint in this department, maybe we could really qualify it and put it up if it's worth that time and money investment. But just to go out and turn over some stones, and I'm not sure if I really see the evidence that we need to do that.
Councilman Teese, did you have something you wanted to say?
Sure. I think the fundamental problem is this. We don't know the price that we're paying for prosecution services. Or pardon me, it's even more basic than that. We don't have a definition of what prosecution services are. I mean, that's very clear, because there are multiple things mentioned by some of the different speakers. And so that's the first problem. Second problem is we don't know what we're paying actually for those services. And I think we don't have a price of doing an investigation, even to put out any sort of discussion about what those services are. I don't, I guess, at this point, my concern is just the fact we don't know what we're paying for. I think any of us would want to know that, wouldn't we? And therefore, we would want to know, is that the best rate? And I think the second thing is, I think one of the captains brought up, the need for victim advocacy and things like that. Are we getting the best use for our dollars right now? Because if it, I think that's the fundamental problem, why we're all sitting around the table going, well, it's too expensive, we don't know what this costs, and I guess if the majority of the council doesn't want to investigate and look into this, and you've said straight off that you have no interest in that, then I'm fine. I guess I'm just 1 of 7.
Yeah, and I do think the question has been asked and answered about what the cost is. The city attorney's office did provide us a hourly cost of what the cost is from their personnel versus what the costs are outside. So there is a cost that has been provided to this council. And if you look at the ICMA study, and if you really look at what they said, they really said you shouldn't outsource your law department. And then they used a strange phrase that even Mr. Kishnick picked up on. If you are going to take a look at maybe letting the county do it, okay? That's what they said. Now, that's absurd. Probably even a conflict of interest of some kind, because the county prosecutes at a county level and the city prosecutes at a city level. I don't even think you could do that. At least in the state of Michigan, I've never heard of that, and I don't even know if you legally could even do that. And I don't think the county would even think about doing that, because they've never done it with anybody else. But aside from that, the important thing that I think everybody has to take away from what happened here tonight, and I encouraged this because I wanted to hear what the police department had to say. If they have the most money in the game here, okay? And I've been there for 35 years, and I've seen other departments that have outsourced, and I see what happened here. I have personal knowledge. You're making a mistake, and you can't ever go back, okay? And I've said that for other things that we've looked at before. You can't go back once you make a decision like this. You cannot do apples to apples here. It's not possible. You can't, tell me what the price you can put on that police department over there that wants us to keep this the way that it is. They do not want us to outsource this, because it goes back to day one, Brian, what kind of city do you want? Okay, and that's what it boils down to. For every decision that this city council makes, what kind of city do you want? I want a city that a citizen can walk into a law department anytime they want and ask a question. I want the police department to walk down the hallway anytime they want to and ask a question that they need to, or call at 2 o'clock in the morning, because I know Lori has staff available to the police department 24/7. If they need a search warrant signed to get blood from a drunk driver at 2 o'clock in the morning and they need help, they can call up Lori's office. You can't do that stuff if you outsource this out. It can't be done. So, I heard, I believe from 4 members of council, that we've looked at this enough. It's time to move forward. And I think this was the last, at least I believe this is the last stone that we had out there that we may try to take a look at. So now, I think it's time to take what Councilman Tietz has said and what we said a couple of meetings ago. Let's reevaluate our priorities. Let's reevaluate where we're going. Take a look at what we've done, see if we've done too much. We want to do more. Infrastructure, I've talked to Mayor Pro Tem Fleming several times about how important our infrastructure and our roads are to the city. I think we just need to put this to rest, put it to bed, let's move forward, and I think I have a consensus of 4 here to do that. Mayor Pro Tem Fleming.
Yeah, just ask questions, and I appreciate what you're saying there. But at this point, we're still sitting here, we don't know what the cost of the prosecution is to this city? I think as a council sitting around the table, that's a pretty elementary question to ask, and somebody in this room should be able to answer that.
Well, I think it has been asked and answered. And
I haven't heard it. You haven't answered it.
Yeah, it's about $1 million, about half of what the budget is.
So our
That-
budget's $1 million, so.
Right.
So it typically takes up about half of what their costs are. And then we were provided an hourly rate, but
$85 an hour.
if you can't compare apples to apples, you know,
You've had
go for it.
But
I'm just talking, we have a consensus here tonight.
We don't know what the...
Are we still allowed a little bit of dialogue on this before
Absolutely.
you shut down the meeting?
Absolutely.
My point is this, is that I realize there's an hourly rate, but to my knowledge, none of our attorneys bill hourly. And I don't think we would bill this as something, or we would never seek to bill this out hourly. I don't understand that aspect, but I think, so if I understand the answer correctly, $500,000 pays for the things that are listed up there?
Well, no. I just want to make it clear. That's pretty much what we could fit on there. But there are a lot of things that are not on there that we do. The administrative search warrants is on there. The citizen complaints that we do. There's a lot of stuff that just comes in on a daily basis. And it would be very, very difficult for us to recount to you everything that our office does, because it varies from day to day. We never know how many officers are going to be coming in asking a question about a stop that they've made, or a criminal, request that a criminal warrant that they want to initiate. What I can tell you is that we think that the prosecution function, because our two paralegals, all of their salary is devoted to the criminal prosecution. So we have that figure, so we know what their salaries are. We know that our attorneys, they rotate. There are 3 different docket days, so we have that as well. But it varies from year to year how much it's going to be. We've had an increase in our court appearances the last few years. We've had increases. So I would estimate it's about 50% of our budget that we attribute to the prosecution service.
Councilman Henderson.
Is there an easy calculation we can make? You have seven employees. Is that including yourself? Or
Yes.
Okay. So you have 7 employees. How many hours a year that they work? And can we take that and multiply it by what a typical law firm would charge per hour? And say that, we're saving half? I mean, is that an easy enough calculation to do, or is that completely not in the...
And I did want to actually clarify another thing, too. You said that, it shouldn't be by the hour. With attorneys, you have to charge by the hour, because you can't limit what the attorney is going to do. An attorney is guided by our professional ethics. So there has to be, you might have a retainer of a certain amount, but you can't set a cap on what that is going to be. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that it's not just going to be a set amount. As far as how we, evaluating, it is very difficult for us to do. I mean, yeah, it varies. It varies depending on what the workload is and what the cases are.
I'm sorry, Lori, there's
Yeah.
a sidebar going on, but that was
Yes.
provided at a closed session.
No, that's
Yeah, this is the one
This
that
is the
Laura
one that was done beforehand, open session 2011.
Is that the ICMA?
Yeah.
No.
This is my presentation of what the ICMA report concluded. Also, if I may, just throw this in, and I don't want to sound too defensive here, but the ICMA's charge was to discover, they had to address in their report for each department whether or not outsourcing should be pursued. And so I think that that is important for you to know, and those of you who didn't have all of that. That was something that the ICMA discussed for each of the departments. And for our department, again, what they said was maybe have the county do it, which we've already discussed how feasible that is.
We could go on for another hour, but we have consensus here tonight, and I think we should just go with the consensus. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming, and
Thank you for having us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your insight.
that document, that to everybody. Okay, procedurally.
Bye, Julie.
Procedurally, the study session is over. We will take a short recess and go into closed session in about 3 minutes. After